The important thing is to never stop questioning. That's Einstein, and yeah, pretty fitting for what we're diving into today. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. We're looking at something you might think is, well, old news. Ethanol. But it's having a bit of a moment.
A big moment, actually. Not just, the bit they mix into gasoline. We're talking about ethanol as a primary fuel.
Exactly. For some really specific heavy-duty uses where other things maybe aren't quite cutting it yet.
Right, and we're pulling this from some solid sources today. Recent studies, Science Direct findings, and also industry reports, particularly from IDR.
Yeah, IDR had some detailed analysis on this.
So our goal here is to unpack why ethanol's back in the spotlight, where it's actually being used like this already, and what it could mean for energy, logistics, maybe even farming.
And if you're tracking current affairs, maybe for UPSC exams or similar, this is definitely relevant. It hits energy policy, agriculture, infrastructure.
It does. It's a really practical side of the energy transition story. And just be clear, everything we're discussing is grounded in that source material, including those IDR reports.
Okay, so usually when we talk future fuels, it's all EVs and hydrogen, right?
Totally. They dominate the headlines, and for good reason. Huge potential there.
But what the research in these reports are showing is that, alongside those big players, other solutions are quietly finding their niche.
And ethanol is stepping right into that space, moving beyond just being an additive.
Especially in sectors where, let's be honest, batteries and hydrogen have some big challenges still.
Like what kind of sectors?
Think heavy industry, things that need massive power, run for ages, and need refueling like now. Not in 8 hours.
Ah, okay. And there's a specific example the reports highlight. John Deere.
Yes. That was fascinating. At the Agritechnica show in Germany.
Right. Hanover, what did they show?
A brand new 9.0-liter engine, an internal combustion engine,
Okay.
but designed to run only on ethanol.
Exclusively. Wow. That is a statement. What's it for?
Heavy machinery, tractors, marine engines, the really demanding stuff.
And crucially,
it's not a prototype. The reports emphasize it's production ready, available now.
ready now, not 10 years from now. That was the quote, wasn't it?
That's the one. It really underlines their thinking.
So why ethanol for these beasts? Why not just wait for better batteries or hydrogen?
Well, the report suggests it's pure pragmatism. Think about harvest time. A massive combine harvester in a remote field.
Can't stop for hours to recharge.
Exactly. Uptime is everything. And getting hydrogen fueling infrastructure out to places like that, that's a huge, expensive, long-term project.
Right, so ethanol kind of bridges that gap. Using tech we mostly understand.
Precisely. It works with modified internal combustion engines, uses liquid fuel you can transport relatively easily. It solves an immediate problem for these specific users.
For those operators who just can't afford the downtime or don't have the grid access, combine harvesters, maybe some freight.
Exactly. It's a specific but critical niche.
And it's not just about the practicals, right? There's science here too. Science Direct had findings.
Yes, there's solid research. It looks at ethanol as part of this whole family of bioalcohols, methanol, propanol, butanol too. They share some useful properties.
Like what? What makes ethanol work well in an engine?
Well, one key thing is its high oxygen content.
Okay, oxygen in the fuel.
Well,
What does that do?
it helps the fuel burn more completely inside the cylinder.
Ah, so cleaner burning.
Cleaner burning, yeah. Less soot, less smoke. Definitely an advantage over traditional diesel in these kinds of heavy applications.
Any efficiency benefits.
The study actually pointed to improved brake thermal efficiency, about 7% better compared to just gasoline when it was blended at 10%, E10.
7%. That's noticeable. How does that work?
It's linked to something called the enthalpy of vaporization. Basically, ethanol cools the air-fuel mixture more as it evaporates, which can lead to better mixing and ultimately more efficient combustion.
Interesting. So cleaner and potentially a bit more bang for your buck, fuel-wise.
Under the right conditions, yes. And the research also looks at how to use these fuels effectively. Engine tweaks, dual fuel setups, different blend ratios.
So we know how to make it work. It's not reinventing the wheel.
Not at all. It's about adapting proven technologies to use these bioalcohols effectively, reducing emissions while keeping performance up.
Okay, so the tech is ready, the science makes sense. But is anyone actually using ethanol as a primary fuel on a large scale? Outside of, say, trade shows.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't theoretical. Brazil is the classic example.
Right, they've been doing this for decades.
Since the 1970s, they have millions, literally millions of flex fuel cars and trucks. Privately owned vehicles running on anything from E10 all the way up to E100, pure ethanol.
Billions. Okay, that's mainstream.
Totally mainstream. The production, the pumps, the whole infrastructure is mature there. It proves it can be done at scale.
Any other examples?
Sweden used ethanol buses for public transport, specifically to cut down on urban pollution.
And what about the U.S.? I thought it was mostly just small blends there.
Well, yes, E10 and E15 are common, but there are actually over 20 million flexible fuel vehicles, FFVs, on U.S. roads right now.
20 million. And what can they run on?
They're designed to handle up to E85, that's 85% ethanol.
And these are normal cars.
Normal cars, trucks, SUVs. The reports mention things like the Ford F-150, Chevy Silverado, Dodge Durango. Popular vehicles?
Wait, so my neighbor's pickup truck might actually be able to run on mostly ethanol?
It's quite possible, yeah. Many people might not even realize their vehicle is an FFE.
Huh. That really highlights the logistical side of things, doesn't it?
It really does. That's one of ethanol's biggest selling points, according to the IDR reports. Logistical simplicity.
Compared to hydrogen, say.
Exactly. Hydrogen, the reports basically call it a logistical headache. You need specialized high-pressure storage, transport is tricky, the production can be energy-intensive, and the fueling station network is, well, mostly theoretical right now.
Whereas ethanol?
It's a liquid. You can make it from crops like corn or sugarcane. You store it in regular tanks. You pump it like gasoline. You use it in engines that are, modified versions of what we already have everywhere.
And you can make it locally, right? Based on agriculture.
That's a huge point. Reduces reliance on imported oil. Think about energy security.
Yeah, the reports mentioned global oil imports are over $1 trillion a year. That's a massive vulnerability.
So producing fuel domestically from agriculture, that looks pretty attractive, especially for lowering emissions and boosting energy independence.
This seems particularly relevant for, say, developing nations.
Absolutely. Building out a nationwide EV charging network or a hydrogen infrastructure from scratch is incredibly expensive.
A massive hurdle.
Huge. But using ethanol, it lets countries leverage their agricultural base, use existing fuel distribution networks, adapt existing engine tech. It's a much more accessible path to start cutting transport emissions.
It's using what you have, adapting it, not waiting for a total revolution.
It's pragmatic. It's an intermediate step, perhaps, but a vital one for many.
Okay, so we've focused mainly on ethanol, but you mentioned it's part of a family, bioalcohols.
Right. Metanol, propanol, butanol. They all have different properties, different potential uses. The Science Direct paper touches on this broader context.
And the reports also mention different generations of biofuels.
Yes, that's about the source material. First generation is mostly from food crops, corn, sugarcane. That's where you get the food versus fuel debate sometimes.
Right, using farmland for fuel instead of food.
Exactly. Second generation aims to avoid that by using non-edible stuff, wood chips, crop waste, that kind of thing. And third gen is looking at algae.
So second and third generation sound more sustainable.
Potentially, yes. But the reports are clear. They face economic challenges right now. Getting the sugars out of something tough, like wood waste, that lignocellulosic material, requires complex, often expensive processes like hydrolysis.
So first-gen ethanol, despite the food crop issue, is kind of the most practical and cost-effective option today based on these sources.
That seems to be the reality presented. It's scalable, storable, relatively clean burning, and crucially, it's available. It checks a lot of boxes for these specific, hard-to-decarbonize industries.
Industries that need a petroleum alternative now, not in 10 or 20 years. Heavy transport, off-grid power.
That's where it's finding its strongest footing. It's a serious contender in that space.
It's definitely not the only answer, but it's clearly a really important piece of the puzzle.
A vital piece, especially for certain niches where batteries and hydrogen just aren't practical yet.
This has been really illuminating. It paints a much more, complex picture of the energy transition than just EVs are the future.
It's much more nuanced, isn't it? We're seeing older, adaptable technologies like ethanol finding new life alongside the newer innovations.
And understanding that nuance is so important. For you listening, whether you're deep into UPSC prep needing insights on energy, environment, ag policy,
or just curious about how we're actually going to power things in the future beyond the buzzwords.
This perspective on ethanol is pretty crucial. It's happening now.
It really fills in some gaps.
So here's something to chew on. Does decarbonization have to mean throwing everything out and starting fresh with completely new tech? Or is there a significant role for solutions like ethanol adaptable available now to bridge the gap, especially in those tougher sectors?
Where does that balance lie between revolutionary change and pragmatic adaptation?
Something to think about.
Deso.
If you found this deep dive useful, please do give us a like and subscribe to the deep dive for more discussions like this.
And drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts on ethanol's role or any questions you have. We do read them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, all the information and analysis today came directly from the source materials we reviewed, including those comprehensive reports from IDR.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.